Welcome to Truth Speaks with Miranda. I'm Miranda Squires, and this is my third interview of Truth Speaks. And today I will be interviewing Lisa Hoffe. And
Hello.
yeah, hello, Lisa. And Lisa is a Canadian mental health counselor. And I've known Lisa since 2002. We've been doing lots of things together. She's come to many things at the Lotus Center. And she has also become a student of the Diamond Approach for Self-Realization. And the books that some of you might recognize are called the Diamond Heart books by A.H. Almaas. And Lisa has been doing Enlightenment Intensives since 2008 and well over 10 or more Enlightenment Intensives. So it's all about truth. So I'd like to now ask some questions to Lisa about her experience in her journey going towards truth. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I feel very welcome.
And let me ask you the first question. The first question is, tell us how you got interested in exploring truth.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this, in preparation. And I guess just very briefly, I'll say that I had this very impactful experience when I was in when I was younger, in my early 20s. And I think what happened was that experience kind of got compartmentalized. There was no meaning I could make from that at the time. So I sort of put it to one side, went on with my life. And then in 2008, I found myself really curious about life purpose and what we're doing here, more existential questions about why are we here on this earth, like what is the meaning of our existence. And that was coupled with a lot of personal stress in my life, like really not feeling fulfilled, having a pretty um, you know a strong ego with a strong inner critic that was really giving me no peace at all. And so I looked for something to get underneath what my frustrated experience was at that time. And that's when I did my first Enlightenment Intensive. That was back in 2008, and that was when I was living in British Columbia. So I had known you, Miranda, for quite some time, and then I really moved out there to sort of take advantage of all the various spiritual schools and lineages that were, so prevalent and continue to be prevalent out there. So I really took advantage of my time living in BC, and the first step in that process was the Enlightenment Intensive, which I know that you also do, and I've done your intensives as well. So very powerful experiences.
Mm-hmm. So in any of these Enlightenment Intensives or anything, it doesn't even have to be in the intensive, but anything that triggered any awakening that you've had, can you tell us about some of those experiences or an experience?
Yeah, certainly. I'll just go back to that formative experience, early on in my life, which connects to, I think, that longing for a spiritual path. It sort of started showing up unbeknownst to me. And the experience was that I almost died from an asthma attack coupled with an anaphylactic reaction to peanuts. Like, I'm fatally allergic to peanuts. So I've had some close calls, but this one was the closest call. And, not to go into that in the huge detail, because that's not this, but I was lying there without really much energy to fight anymore. and I felt myself letting go, and I felt myself separating from my body. I just felt, had an experience of myself, uh, my body was down below me and I was higher up, sort of floating or something over that, in the same room, the emergency room that I was in, and they were fighting so hard to, to apply all their interventions to keep me alive. And I remember at that time, I saw in that kind of that position above my body while they were working on my body, my father, who was deceased, you know, recently, within the year before this happened. And we had a communication that was nonverbal. So I looked at him, and I guess his presence there was telling me that he would help me leave my body. And the minute I hesitated, I didn't know if that's what I wanted. Slam, I was back in that physical body on the gurney fighting for my life. And so I realized many years later that I chose to keep living, that there was a choice there. My hesitation was a choice. And so I guess really how that unpacked itself was, um, I I felt that I had this second opportunity to live, and I really wanted to know more about why I was here. Um, you know, uh, I guess I felt like I wanted to enrich my life because I had the second opportunity to keep living and to keep knowing and understanding. And so the frustration I talked about earlier with my kind of ego state, and things weren't going well in my life, led me to an intensive. And I guess what happened on that first intensive, I've had many experiences, over many years with enlightenment intensives, but also with the diamond approach work. We work with a group, with a teacher, and I feel like I've had profound experiences on both sides, both, let's say, both lineages of spiritual work. But I think that first enlightenment intensive experience in 2008, it came at the very end of the whole enlightenment intensive 3 days. We were contemplating who we were. So as the person is asked repeatedly in dyads, tell me who you are. So the experience I had as I was walking back up to do the very last dyad exercise of the whole experience, um, it, it was dark and it was outside, and we were all on a walking contemplation. And I had just before released a lot of emotional, um, you know, um, energy, a lot of sadness, a lot of surrender. Like, I just, I can't keep going like I am. Like, please help me. And so that had just passed, and I heard the bell to return to the hall, and walking there, I uh, I had an experience of saying words. They came out of my mouth with no prior thought. Like, I wasn't thinking this. It just came out of my mouth. No prior thought to these words. And in fact, when I said them, I even looked like, who said that? Because there was no one else around me. It must have been me. I had to like use my deductive reasoning to understand, in the moment what was happening. So I took that sentence that I spoke into my last dyad and presented it, to my dyad partner. And that sentence was, "I'm here to live my truth." And even as I say that, it's like really touches me even now. How many years later is this?
Yeah.
And so so that's been something that stayed with me. And whether I was willing, well, whether I was a willing participant or not, I feel like that sentence has been slowly unpacking and integrating into my life. And there's a continual process of allowing that to to really fully blossom in my life over the years.
So I have a question around that. So you were talking about that there was a kind of a surrender part prior to the experience happening for you. So can you describe that, how necessary you think that is before the shift takes place?
I think it's important. I didn't really know what the process was at that time, but I guess I had some lived experience over time to understand that there is this emotional buildup. There's some I don't know what we'd call it, a demon or something that we're fighting. A veil that we're rendering, and that we get confronted with it, and we finally are at the apex of that confront. And for me at that time, I don't remember exactly. I think it was the unhappiness and the sort of conflicts I was having within myself. And I know, from my study of the Enneagram, that I have a very strong inner critic as an Ennea type 1, which, we can talk about now or another time. But there's this very strong critic sort of keeping me in line. My super ego is like always telling me, what I should do. And I think I'd kind of had enough of it. And I remember some giant rock there, and I just sort of was sitting on it, and I just kind of, just wanted to surrender it all. Like I didn't really know how to get out of the pain that I was in from this harsh inner critic, and I wanted some peace. Even the years that I went through therapy, actual psychotherapy with my own counselor, I was looking for peace from this, and separation from this strong inner critic. So that surrender, it's important. And we can see, I think, in a vehicle like the Enlightenment Intensive and a vehicle like the Diamond Approach, we are set on a path to explore barriers to our true self. Our barriers to a more essential self or true nature. And so we come, in close contact with our inquiry with those barriers. And really it's the knowing the barriers, and really getting intimate with the barriers, using the sharp tool of inquiry.
Very good.
That help us to understand what mechanisms are in place and how do we get in under those and understand them. So the surrender piece comes if we allow it, to just feel the pain and suffering of that ego activity. We are really able to just be with it and see how it operates, without trying to defend and do more and be more reactive to it, which is where we, I think, can prolong the breakdown of those ego mechanisms. But in just acknowledging that they're there and seeing the pain of it and sitting with it, seeing that whole blueprint at work, it's very helpful to getting yourself to the doorway of grace. I know that you have said this yourself in some teachings, that we can get ourselves to the doorway of grace, but we can't open the door. Grace has to open that door and let us experience ourselves, in a more essential way, so we know more about our true nature and who we are on an existential level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Tell us a little bit more about how you're able to recognize when you're up against a resistance, and that you know how to do the surrender part as opposed to resist further?
Well, in the diamond approach, we uh, we do also a form of self-inquiry, and that is essentially the same tool that is used in the Enlightenment Intensive, that inquiry exercise where um, we locate ourselves when given the instruction, and we sense into ourselves, and kind of take note of what's actually happening. So really, the diamond approach, even though we do that in structured exercises, um, as a student of the diamond approach and learning both of these, wonderful techniques, I've taken that into my own life. So even if I'm not in an inquiry exercise with somebody, I can apply the curiosity, gentle curiosity, which is really important because this is difficult territory. Taking a peeking under the hood of our ego mechanisms. It can be, we can, have some emotional reactions. So we spend most of our time trying to defend against hurt, and or reacting or out of hurt. So it's something to shift over, and to just say, okay, I'm going to look at this. And so that loving kindness towards oneself, and that gentle curiosity as an observer of our own, ego mechanisms is important. So let's say I'm here and I wake up in the morning, and I'm not feeling, there's something, I feel agitated, or I feel, like, kind of, um, I'm sort of complaining, or I'm wanting to blame somebody or myself about something. That's kind of like a red flag. And so I will just stop. And like the Enlightenment Intensive inquiry exercise, I just take stock of what actually is happening. Sometimes it takes a little while, but I try to inquire into myself, like what's happening. And then sometimes the feeling can come forward, and then I'm asking myself, well, okay, what is this about? Like, what, so I'm really just taking that tool and just sort of, expanding it for home use, I guess. I'm just taking it, and I'm being with what's happening and what's arising, and trying to understand, like, what is actually happening here in the moment. And often I will get some inkling, or sometimes a full answer to what's happening within myself, if I allow myself to feel the emotions underneath the defended, ego self.
Hmm. Yes. So I think maybe our viewers would probably like to know about how we can practice this in our daily life, um, given that maybe some of our viewers don't have a practice of this.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any recommendations of how anyone can, I don't know, work with this? Like get close to truth.
Yeah, so of course there are many practices that can bring us to a place of self-awareness. I think a meditation practice is helpful if we have an ongoing meditation practice where we just practice stillness on a daily basis,
Mhm.
just sitting, for a few moments of each day, and perhaps extending that as we're able to. A lot of things can just really come in that situation. Although meditation can also be seen as a way to see the thoughts coming and putting them aside. But feelings that come, I think there are some really, that's really rich material for what's actually happening, because often we distract ourselves and we're so busy that we don't allow these feelings to come forward. And so I think a meditation practice, is helpful. um, but also, as I said, I think the orientation of the person is helpful. So applying, again, a gentle curiosity, looking at ourselves as a kind of observer, and and applying some, some compassion to what's arising for us in a moment. So just having it, that approach or that orientation, is really helpful. And I think also, I also teach the Enneagram, which is, the Enneagram of personality, which really is a way for us to see our ego mechanisms, our blueprint, our Enneatype at work, and how we can get some separation from that blueprint, that mechanism, that automatic mechanism that we have inside of ourselves. And in those teachings, I often say, that we need to catch ourselves in the act. So my teachers, my Enneagram teachers, were fond of saying that. And so it's a good little catchphrase. We need to catch ourselves in the act. So if we do have a kind of insight approach, what I'm really talking about is an insight approach. So if you notice there's something amiss, like you're not feeling in alignment with, the task you have to do, or it's a beautiful day outside and you're not in alignment with that, like there's something not quite lining up for you, there's that insight approach. And so with practices like mindfulness or meditation, we can kind of get a little bit of quieting and stillness inside, and see that there's something that person just said to me that is not landing. I feel triggered by that. What is it? Where has this happened before? Is this a familiar thing? So it's sort of like we start to break up the patterning, the patterning, our habitual patterning of ego, when we see, that's happened to me before. Someone else said something like that to me, and I had the same reaction. And it kind of feels like, my big brother used to say that to me when I was a kid, and I didn't like it then, and makes me feel small. And so there's a kind of inquiry, there's a line of inquiry, in a moment that can happen. And we can realize in those moments, as we work with this tool of catching ourselves in the act, that perhaps what just happened that we were triggered by has nothing to do with the person who said it, has a lot to do with our history. It's an overlay onto our present experience. So that's the helpful thing I use, and I've been taught to use, with both of those inquiry techniques that I have, I have had the pleasure of, being exposed to in all these years.
Yeah, so it's fabulous. You actually have explored many tools. You've explored the Enlightenment Intensive and the Diamond Approach and the Enneagram. So is there anything more you could tell us about the Enneagram that would be a good tool for us?
Yeah, I think the Enneagram is, I've noticed recently there's been this resurgence of interest in the Enneagram. Just reading during this time that we've all been, keeping closer to home. There's a lot of reading and internet searching, and sort of acquiring, some self-knowledge about the Enneagram. The Enneagram is quite simply a psychological and spiritual personality typing. And it's, when you think about other personality types, like typologies, like say Myers-Briggs, for example, it's that kind of tool. And it's a representation of 9 points on a circle. There's a whole symbol associated to the Enneagram, which goes back to antiquity. But the 9 points on this circle are meant to, point us toward our orientation to the world. And so there are 9 types, and then in between all those types, there are, subtypes. So it's a very complex tool. But with those 9 orientations, what it's pointing us to is a kind of a blueprint of our personality. So this, I'm talking about the ego structure, the psychology of our makeup, how we've developed, and what our lenses are that we look through, in our particular orientation on the Enneagram, on that circular figure. And um, and the Enneagram helps point us to what is real in that orientation. It helps point us toward, away from ego structure and towards what is real. And when I say what is real, I mean, what is our true nature? Where is our true nature in that whole structure
Mhm.
of the personality type? And we can see that dropping down deeper into ourselves using the inquiry tools that I spoke of, and that you lead the Enlightenment Intensive, so you can see that this is true for yourself. I think dropping down into one's experience, um, you know, so you're basically dropping down through that ego structure that binds us so tightly, that those defenses and our reactivity and our patterning, and we get down to a more true nature, and we can experience our true, truer aspects about ourselves. So what's real and true? And so for all of the types, there's a different spiritual orientation, there's a different spiritual truth for us. And we can rediscover those, because as the Enneagram theory goes, we've become separated from those, as a child, developing and going through normal psychological development, building the ego structure and all of the mechanisms, the inner critic and the id and the ego and the superego, right? Those are naturally formed as part of our psychological development, but we also separate from the truer aspects of ourselves. So the Enneagram helps point us. It's a map
Mm.
or an orientation towards what is true and what is real, and how we got separated from those things. And so a very powerful tool. I know that it has helped me so much, in my own life. I talked, earlier too about that heavy inner critic, that supercharged super ego that is almost, for any type ones like me, sounds like the voice of God. Sometimes it can be so strong, a voice, a commanding voice inside of ourselves. If if we don't want to use the word God, it's like a godlike figure. And so, using the Enneagram has really helped me understand what is going on, applying some self-awareness and using the tools that I've been taught through, these various mechanisms of the Enlightenment Intensive, the Diamond Approach, the Enneagram, to really get in underneath what it's trying to do, why it wants me to pin me in place. So what is that about? And so it's very helpful stuff. And I had to really just go and learn how to teach it, because I found it so helpful. I really just wanted to know for myself, what is this amazing, spiritual tool, but also maybe other people might be interested too.
Yeah. Well, I came into the Enneagram, I think through you. I think years ago, I kind of really got onto it with you. You came here and did
Mm.
a workshop, and
Yes, you did an
I,
early workshop with
I
me.
took off with that, and it has become my Bible. Every
Hmm.
time I go into dyads, I use my personality as the thing to work with, and I using what my Enneagram type is. I'm a type 3, and I've noticed that I'm run and sort of controlled by um, wanting to achieve my projects. I'm constantly working on projects all the time, and it's all about completing them, achieving them, feeling successful, and to the point where I feel like I'm being controlled by them. So
So a
it's
lot of doing, a lot of
a
doing.
lot of doing. I'm a doer, and here I am, a meditator, and I'm doing my meditation. Like I'm everything becomes a project. So I have also really appreciated the Enneagram work for that, because there are stages or levels of it. Like there's the unhealthy, then there's the average, and then there's the healthy. And so it's really nice to see as I evolve that I'm moving through those levels towards the more healthy. And then in the healthy, it seems like you can have you can meet truth, or you can have a direct experience of truth, but it will show up in your personality type, like this thing. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as I had said about these 9 points on this circular geometric figure, that comes to us from antiquity, from the time of, Greek, you know, the Greek philosophers and scholars. So those 9 orientations, those are 9 universal laws, um, and or 9 universal truths, let's say. And that's the reason why we each have a different one. So my, the universal truth that I become separated from as an Enneatype point 1 is different for you as an Enneatype point 3. And so when we return, when we begin to loosen that, ego structure, that tight, way we hold ourselves, and the tight, frameworks. We're really talking about cognitive frameworks that really inform and experience how we feel, what our inner experience is. And so like, getting back to um, my universal truth, I'm gonna really, that's gonna unpack itself, and it's gonna show up for me in a very different way that it shows up for you. And the beauty of it is, the circular figure is that we all, well, two things about that. We all have something unique to come forward and to express from this place of universal truth when we are in union with that. But also, because we're all points on that circle, it means that we can all have, a reaction of a 3, or an experience of a 1. There are flavors of all of those 9 types in all of us. It's just that we have one dominant orientation. So it's a really complex and beautiful tool to help. And it really starts with what I had said earlier, knowing the territory of what that ego structure looks like, and then building in some space so we can catch ourselves in the act of knowing, there's something here. Now, what is it about that has triggered me, or that I feel like there's some hurt or some anger or frustration? Like, what is happening now? So we have this map, and then we have our experience, and we can try to, interpret what's happening using that process of the insight approach, or just catching ourselves in the act.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's a fabulous tool. I highly recommend it. So I thought that maybe we could go back to, maybe you could tell us another experience you've had on any of the work that you've done, like on Enlightenment Intensive or Diamond Approach or anything. Do you have another experience you could share with us?
Absolutely. I want to say just a little more about the experience, that first sentence that came
Yes.
streaming out of my mouth with no prior thought. And like, I actually, as I said, I had to, look around and see if somebody else had said that, which was, I'm here to live my truth. And so it's sort of like become this meta, it's almost like a story arc, let's say. It's become this meta arc that has kind of traveled with me in this sort of lifeline, this sort of timeline of my life since that first experience. And so sometimes I've had experiences where early on it was, the sentence, if you could imagine it in your mind, I'm here to live my truth. And if you put the accent or capitalize my, that was what was important to me at first, was I'm here to live my truth, which gave me help, to sort of know what was true and to have that as my guiding orientation. So my truth. And then later on, it became, I'm here, to live my truth. And that was certainly something that connects back to this choice that unfolded when I had such a traumatic experience in an emergency room on my last, what seemed like my last breaths. So I'm here, to live my truth. And now in later years, it's like I'm here to live my truth,
Wow.
right? Yeah, this
Oh,
is what is so fascinating, about this whole trajectory, this story arc. It's like I'm here to live my truth. And so, just saying that, Miranda, I'm just so touched, going through, that story arc for you, and highlighting some of it, but to live my truth has become the most important thing. And so, this gets a little bit back to the diamond approach, and some recent experiences I've had. I've had two about support, and they're about support for my self-realization, which really means just living, from a place of being instead of a place of incessant doing, and doing from an ego place, like if I do this I'm going to get that. And so just making more and more and more space for me to just be. And so, two experiences about that. One, last year on our week-long Enlightenment Intensive, um, that was with Marie Kennedy, and you were there with me as a participant, and it was a wonderful experience. And I hope that we have, sometime in the future, re, we can redo, or not redo, but take up that experience and have that experience. Yeah, we can gather together in that way and have that experience again. Um, but I had an experience of, immense support, and it did come at a time of surrender. On my cushion, my chair in a dyad row, I was feeling, and I was allowing myself to feel, just opening, allowing myself to feel, uh, this painful experience of financial struggle, of emotional struggle, of really not being where I wanted to be in life. Um, for a lot of reasons, I really felt like I was living a very contracted state and was struggling. And so I just let that all come forward, and I didn't edit myself in front of my dyad partner. I just, I if I was blaming, I would say it, in a way that fit, the instructions were given. Um, I would just let it come forward that I just felt that deficiency completely, and I just took it all out, showed it to my dyad partner, and was so deeply sad for, um, the financial challenge, the difficulties, the objective difficulties that I was experiencing. And so I kind of had that big emotional outburst, and I just let it go, and just surrendered to it. I just didn't want to, you know continue to, like, you know um, continue to cultivate this self-image in front of the other, which we do as an ego self. We try to control how we present ourselves to others, and I was just having none of that. Like, I was just letting it all go, and letting it out. And then what arose after that time was, um, sorry, I'm just going to take a little drink of water. I'm talking a lot.
yeah.
I don't want to start coughing because that happens.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm very interested.
Yeah. So what happened after that time? I think it was maybe a next inquiry exercise. So I feel like let's just say the bottom opened up. I just kind of let myself just go down to the bottom and let it go. So in the diamond approach, what we call that a hole. It's a hole, the hole of no support, let's call it. And so I was feeling no support. And then there I am, letting the bottom go. The bottom came out, and I was sitting there. And then what started to sort of form in my experience, in my inner experience, was, a sense of solidity, like a real solid feeling. Like I remember I was sitting on a cushion and my legs were folded like this. And so I got a sense of myself as this triangle, this sort of tripod, the shape that I was in. And it started to feel like I was really steady and solid in that. And like nothing was going to tip me over. It was just such a solid foundation that I had. And then it started to build and started to build. And there was a lot of presence coming. So much in the here and now. I was just absolutely second by second watching and being with this experience, and then just being, with my partner. So there was a confidence, in that solidity, like that sort of, that immobile structure that I was becoming. There was this confidence and this presence and this, solidness. So, and then it kind of built and it built, and there was such presence, and I knew that here I was, having experience of what I am, and what I am is support. And the support was a mountain. So that tripod shape I had said, I basically felt myself just sitting there as this mountain peak, so solid as a thousands of year old rock, you know and that was not my ego, right? That was some place that came up and imbued me with this confidence and steadfastness and solidity and clarity and presence. And it was the what we call in the diamond approach, it was will, the essential aspect. In the diamond, there are many aspects to the diamond, and that all function together to help us um, you know more and more realize our essential nature, and will is an aspect. So there was this mountain of will. There was a mountain of will that was sitting there, and as me, and I was it. And so I in those moments, I was saying to my partner, I am support. It's not that I am supported, because I certainly felt supported in the EI structure, and it makes me reflect on all the support I get for my self-realization, in the enlightenment intensive work, doing dyads and with the diamond approach. But it wasn't in those moments that I feel supported. It was, what was true was, I am support.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And so to take the teachings a little further, the diamond approach teachings, that structure is, A.H. Almas describes it as the citadel. And the citadel, if you know the meaning of the citadel, or you can even think about, some places in the world, like it's a fortress. It's sort of, it's, a walled city, or a strong, stable support, where we have, inside of that support, and it's meant to help us understand, um, that we need support for our realization, and that we have an inner source of support. We're no longer looking outside. I need this support. I need this, and this is going to help me. This is coming from within. So it's really really important, aspect to understand and to have as an experience, because, before this time, um, in that financial struggle, or the general life struggle I was in the middle of, um, it was, there was a lot of doing, like, okay, well, I'll do this and that will help me, and I'll go over there and I'll talk to this person. They'll have some guidance and help for me. And, those things are helpful, no question. But really, what I'm learning is that sometimes we disown our own sense of support, and we look to others. Okay, he has that. Like, I can get support from him, or I can get support from her, or this group, or this experience, or, that's where I'm going to get my support. So it's important to have an experience of support in oneself, because what happens is, we, in our ego structure, sometimes we can disown our own sense of that inner support, which has always been available. But we disown it, and we think, okay, I look for that ideal, that support's over there, I'm going to go over there and get it. So it was like a multi-level experience that I had at that time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So you've
I
had,
didn't I didn't talk about the second one, but that was a long answer.
yeah, okay. Well, I mean, there's a second one you could tell us?
Well, the second one relates to that,
Okay.
and so um, so that experience was what I would, I've read Alma's, who's, has a wonderful map of the development of the essential self, and has had experienced these things, and has written them down, and their qualities, and has studied them while working with students. So these books are really helpful in knowing, you know, helping to understand what exactly was this mountain that I was at that time. But a cautionary note about that, I didn't run to those books right away, because that can turn it into a conceptual thing. And really, I had the real thing. So I didn't want to kind of run to that right away. But later in my integration, it helped me to kind of read about it and understand it. And so I've just finished another Diamond Approach teaching. I have a teacher. His name is Thomas Weinberg, fabulous teacher, a senior teacher of the Diamond Approach. And he teaches our group. He leads our group in Diamond Approach Toronto. Um, and we just did a retreat like this on Zoom. More water. We did this kind of format on Zoom teachings, then going to inquiry. And, what arose for me is more of that support, more of that support. And this time, the experience was, it had a melting quality. I said to my inquiry partner at the time, I feel like I'm this giant piece of caramel. so 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 it was like this melting, warm, a sweet, from the heart, a sweetness. I felt so much loving kindness, towards the people I was doing the exercise with, but also towards myself. So it was an aspect of loving kindness, and so sweet and melting, but imbuing me with so much presence, to just be, to just allow myself to just be, without, my ego getting in there and giving me messages about, what I should say next, or um, and so the melting quality was important, because I felt the melting kind of going down my arms, and kind of filling myself with this quality of presence. And the melting, it felt like even though it was an essential quality arising, so it was imbued with presence, and an essential quality was bringing itself to my awareness, from within myself. It actually had the feeling of, physiologically, it was like a relaxation response, like this kind of slow melting down my arms, was almost like dopamine or something, some chemical reaction in the brain that just relaxed me. I just felt so relaxed, and I could just open. But it wasn't a chemical reaction, it was presence. Um, and and so when I explained it to Thomas, when we went back to our large group to report, how our inquiry had went, I told him about my experience, and he said, "Your ego defenses, they're relaxing," he said, "so you can just be yourself." And so I realized I didn't need to do anything to be myself. I just needed to just be. And in this, loving kindness that was unpacking in me, that's what was so clear. I could easily do it. And so it gets back to the will, because that was in support of my realization, and having the group and all the work, but also the work I was doing. It all goes towards support for my self-realization. And then really what that is a diamond, an aspect of diamond will we're working on, where we just, all of the qualities, all of the aspects of that diamond show up in a form of support to allow us to just be. um, and so I, again, I'm reminded of all the support that I have, and I can touch into that aspect of inner support that arises, the essential support that's there, um, to continue on with just being, because there's nothing I'm going to do, or there's nothing I need to get
Mm.
to just be.
Yeah.
That was what was unpacked in the teaching for me. Like, there's no amount of doing, is going to get me here. Like, just just being is not something you actually do. It's not called just doing. It's called just being.
Um, yeah. So I think I'd like to hear a little bit about how we can integrate our experiences into life. And you did sort of um, touch on this, but if you could, you know, expand on how we can integrate our experiences into life so that it becomes more life rather than just an experience that we had.
That's a very excellent question to ask right at this time, Miranda, because it really goes back to that story arc, let's say, of the unpacking of, I'm here to live my truth. So like I said, I'm here to live my truth now. And that all connects to the recent experiences and the teachings about the diamond will, and about, which is really about support, essential support. And so, um, in order for me, as this one individual with still an ongoing ego structure, I know that territory more, but it's just going to reinsert itself. I mean, that's just what it does. Um, we're never going to get rid of that. It's just always going to be around in some fashion and form. I hate to break the sad news to people if they think that they're
Sooner
going to
we're
just,
disillusioned, the better.
boot, yeah, we're going to boot it out. But knowing that structure is helpful. But so those recent experiences are helpful for me, because you know, okay, I'm going to have this mechanism, but now I can apply more and more of what I know and my learned skills and experience to disengaging with that inner critic, and watching, catching myself in the act and watching that ego starting to ramp itself up, and excessive doing, doing from a place that is ego based. Like, I'm not saying in the just being, under the banner of just being, to do nothing. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really not, we need to support ourselves in life in a material way, in a physical way. But the doing, it's important to check in with, where is the doing coming from? Is it coming from, you know, my being, or is it coming from an ego that's like, okay, I want to, make this for myself, and I want it to look like that. So living my truth, uh, you know, I guess what I've been back in touch with is this tremendous supports
Mm.
that I need, to continue to live from that place of truth, from that place of being, continuing to speak my truth, which sometimes I have difficulty with. I have difficulty speaking up and saying what my truth is at times. We can all get into these difficult situations in life where it's going to be awkward and hard to just say, this is this is what's true for me, and I know that that's not what you want to hear, right? Um, so the supports, like spiritual community, uh, meditation, to practice ongoing cultivation of presence in life, um, having other friends and, fellow warriors on the path, and being in connection with them, and showing up, I mean, that's really what living my truth is. And I had something here that I was, it's a quote from my teacher. I just happened to have it because I was transcribing some notes from a recording of him I listened to. And what he says here, and I think this is about living my truth. Um, he says, we have to show up. We have to show up and render the veils one by one. And I think that's important, like, showing up for myself as, as this one that is, connected to being, that is not ruled or governed by ego, uh, you know and showing up when things are difficult, and, that ability to say what is going on, to get it across, to speak one's truth. I mean, that's what I mean by showing up. And I think that is what happens, as we continue to move through this process. If we're realizing ourselves and self-actualizing ourselves, in a psychological way, is the importance of showing up, and just living the truth by speaking our truth and being in alignment with our truth, and the supports, being connected to supports that help us on our path to self-realization. It's not an easy path. Walking the path of self-realization is simple in sense of speaking one's truth and living from one's truth, but it's also difficult at the same time, because, it's easier sometimes to say nothing, or to go along and accommodate another, or all the ways that we can get away from our own truth and living our own truth. So these recent teachings and experiences really kind of reconnect me and reignite, that sense of how important support for realization is, as I continue to unfold my own truth as it shows up for me. So yeah, uh, I guess I'm just going to say it again. We have to show up, as Thomas says, we have to show up and render the veils one by one. Those, those ego defenses, the patterning, all the ways that separate us from our true nature, one by one. We will show up, and we will gain understanding, and we will work with those veils so that we render them, and that we can be, coming from a place of true nature.
Yes, Lisa, this is beautiful, beautiful interview, and everything that you have offered us today. It's very informative. I think people could watch this interview a few times because it's packed full of knowledge, especially in those three areas: the Enlightenment Intensive, the Enneagram work that you do, and the Diamond Approach, and your experiences and how to integrate it into life. And your last thing, which reminds me of the word that I like to use, is spiritual warrior. It's like, yeah, I'm going to just walk right into this bare, like naked. It's like, I'm not bringing my ego and my defense mechanisms with here, because all I want is truth, the divine truth. So
Absolutely.
yeah, you've done a beautiful job. And let's say before we end, is there any last things that you could tell us, the listeners, any little tips that would help us other than what you've already suggested?
Yeah, I just want to build on what you've just said about that sort of the courage, of the warrior, to step into difficult terrain. I mean, let's face it, sometimes, we have to, in our avoidance or distraction, all the things that we do to keep ourselves from, some painful experiences. Stepping into those is difficult, and having that courage of a warrior is really important. But I guess I just want to say to people who are, thinking, wow, this is going to be really hard. If you haven't really tried any of these before, what I will say is that in my experience, and I think I've just talked about it in a number of ways, when you step into your truth and you try to explore that territory, even if you don't feel you have the courage of the warrior, in my experience, something inside rises to meet you.
Very good.
An essential quality will be there to help you. It might be strength, essential strength, which we call in the Diamond Approach the red. Um, it might be a way to look at what's happening with a joyful curiosity, which is a yellow. The aspect, is joy. It's a yellow. We put a yellow quality, a color on that. It might be courage, which comes from the heart, which is a strength quality again. Um, so there are things. Your inner capacity is there, and sometimes it rises to meet you. As you step forward. So have faith. I guess just have faith that as you step into inquiry, and you work and you empty out and you let go and you surrender, something is there for you to discover. Something is there for you. So check it out.
Right on. Well, I think we can come to a close of our interview. Thank you
Yes.
very, very much, Lisa. It's been just packed full of knowledge and information and inspiration towards the truth. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Miranda.
Yes. See you around. Okay.
See you. See you in person sometime soon.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.